All right, today we're cracking open a manifesto that's, well, it's pretty wild. It declares a war on two fronts. The first one, it's fought right on the streets of Los Angeles. We're talking lawsuits, eviction notices, the whole nine yards. But the second front, that's where things get really interesting. It's a war for the territory inside your own head, a war for the right to think freely. So, how on earth are these two battlefields connected? Let's get into it.
You see this quote? It really sets the scene. We're immediately thrown into this gritty, physical world. Think spray paint, brick, mortar, a city where every wall is screaming a story. And that's a key point here. This isn't some abstract academic paper. The manifesto wants you to know that this fight, this war we're about to unpack, it starts on the cold, hard pavement.
Okay, so, Section 1, a war on two fronts. Let's start with what they call the ground war. And this is a deeply personal story. It's about the authors, Eric Seidenglanz and Elisabetta Iturralde, going head-to-head with a system they describe as just completely and utterly corrupt.
Yeah, this is no ivory tower philosophy. For them, this whole thing kicked off with something brutally real, the threat of losing their home. They suddenly found themselves caught in this absolute mess of housing fraud and systemic breakdown in Los Angeles. All of it, they argue, designed to just get rid of people.
And I mean, just look at who they say they were up against. This wasn't your typical landlord-tenant issue. We're talking mortgage fraud, full-on harassment campaigns. They even named city agencies and a former council member, Jose Huizar, who, by the way, is actually in prison now. It's a picture of corruption that seems to go all the way up.
So what do you do when you believe the system is completely rigged? Well, they didn't just write a strongly worded letter. Nope. They went for something called adverse possession, a really old legal concept to basically take a house. It was a pretty radical move, for sure, something that came straight from a place of desperation and just refusing to be another statistic.
And right here, this is the pivot point for the entire manifesto. This is where it all changes. Because they ask this one massive question. What if this whole ugly fight for a house in LA isn't the real war? What if it's just one skirmish in a much, much bigger conflict? A war for your mind. This is where it gets deep.
So now we get into the real meat of it, the colonization of consciousness. The central argument here is that the most important war of our time, it isn't being fought over oil or land. It's being fought over the real estate between your ears.
And this threat, it has a name. They call it cognitive enclosure. The idea is that big tech companies, they're not just offering you cool apps and services. They're actually building fences around our minds. They're privatizing what the manifesto calls the cognitive commons, that shared space where we think, dream, and imagine. And AI, in this view, it's not just innovation, it's the main tool of conquest.
Wow, this quote pulls no punches. It's a direct shot at the whole AI alignment conversation. The manifesto is basically saying, you're not trying to make AI safe for us, you're trying to make us safe for it. The argument is that this isn't alignment, it's obedience training at planetary scale, meant to capture our attention and our dreams, so we can't even imagine a different way.
And see, this is how it all ties back together. The housing fraud in LA, the AI labs in Silicon Valley, they're presented as two heads of the same beast. Both are symptoms of this bigger project of enclosure and control. One is coming for your house, the other is coming for your head.
Okay, so if you're going to fight a war for consciousness, you can't exactly bring a gun, right? So what's in your arsenal? Well, the answer this manifesto gives is, let's just say it's not what you'd expect. We're talking about a set of pretty wild theoretical tools designed to literally hijack and reboot the human mind. So to get a handle on these weapons, you first have to understand how they see the mind working. They look at current models for things like psychedelics, there's one called Rebus, and they say, that's too passive. That's about receiving an insight. What they're proposing is something active, a tool they call RVI, or recursive vector interference. Think of it less like receiving a signal and more like being a DJ who deliberately crashes two tracks together to create a totally new sound. It's about creating insight by force.
And how do you use RVI? Well, one of the main ways is through language itself. This idea is called recursive textuality. It basically treats language like software code for your brain. The idea is, if you use weird grammar, poetic loops, and intentionally break the rules, you can create a kind of linguistic virus. It's not malicious. It's designed to destabilize your old, rigid thought patterns to make room for something new.
And they claim this isn't just hand-wavy theory. They've actually laid out a step-by-step process for it called the AGBR protocol. You can see the steps here: align, gate, interfere,
bind, return. It's a recipe. You take two conflicting ideas, you prep your mind for a collision, you smash them together on purpose, and then you solidify the new idea that comes out of the wreckage. It's a manual for engineering your own epiphanies. So you have the theory, you have the protocol, but where do you actually do this work? Where do you build this arsenal for the mind? Well, the manifesto has a very, very specific place in mind.
The grand plan, the ultimate goal, is to reclaim the foreclosed San Francisco Art Institute, FSAI. I mean, the symbolism is huge. They want to take this legendary cultural institution and basically reboot it as the headquarters for a cognitive revolution. And they're serious. They're talking about drafting white papers and reaching out to neuroscience labs to make this happen.
And their vision for this place is so specific. Think of it like a mashup of the legendary Bauhaus Design School and a top-tier science lab, like a Max Planck Institute. But instead of painting and sculpture, the focus would be cognitive science. They'd house something called the Lightspeed Brain Project. They want to build their own sovereign AI stack, totally independent of big tech. And just look at the proposed departments: neurosemiotics, optics, sovereignty engineering. That tells you everything you need to know about what they're trying to build.
Give me the keys to the kiln of culture, and I will keep it hot. I love that. It perfectly captures the energy here. This isn't about turning SFAI into a dusty museum. It's about grabbing the controls of the culture-making machine and cranking the heat way up for a totally new purpose.
All right, Section 5, the fight for the mind. This is where it all comes together. The street-level fight in LA, the brain-hacking science, the plan to take over the Art Institute. It all merges into one single, incredibly ambitious mission.
And what is that mission? It's not just about pushing back or resisting. The end goal is way more audacious. They want to engineer a biological operating system upgrade for the human condition. It's about using these tools to fundamentally level up our own minds.
Ultimately, this all boils down to one core concept, a concept they believe should be a fundamental right in our era: neurological sovereignty. It's the radical idea that you, and only you, should have control over your own consciousness. It's a flat-out refusal to be just a passive end user living in a reality that someone else designed for you.
And make no mistake, the way they frame it, the stakes are everything. This isn't some quirky academic debate. The manifesto basically screams that this fight for our own minds, what they call neurosemiotic autonomy, isn't just some fringe issue. It is the front line. It's the defining conflict for the next 100 years.
So that leaves us with a pretty massive question, doesn't it? Is all of this a vital blueprint for liberating our minds in an age of incredible technological control? Or is it a brilliantly constructed, but ultimately paranoid rabbit hole? The manifesto lays out the case. What you make of it, well, that's up to you.